So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. And today we are going to be taking a look at one of the most interesting picks of the Lions 2023 draft. Taking a look at a player that was talked about a ton throughout the offseason, a ton throughout the pre-draft process, had a lot of haters, had a lot of supporters, and ended up going at the 63rd overall selection. Yes, today we were talking about the 5th selection in the Detroit Lions 2023 rookie class, quarterback from Tennessee, Hendon Hooker. Now, Hendon Hooker, obviously, as I said, had a lot of haters, had a lot of doubters, and had a lot of supporters. I am somebody that fell somewhere in the middle. I thought Hendon Hooker was a good, not great quarterback prospect. The age and the injury bug really did concern me, and I think that he went with a very appropriate pick in the 2023 draft. But today, we are going to be taking a look at Hendon Hooker as a prospect, taking a look at his pros and his cons, taking a look at what he does well, what he doesn't do well, why the Lions took him with the 63rd overall pick, and what position that puts the Detroit Lions in moving forward. So, with that being said, and without any further ado, let's get right on in to taking a look at Hendon Hooker, the 68th overall pick by the Detroit Lions in 2023. Now, Hendon Hooker last year for the Tennessee Volunteers threw for 3,135 passing yards, 27 passing touchdowns to just 2 interceptions through the air. On top of that, he rushed for 430 yards as well as 5 touchdowns on the ground. He is an incredibly decisive quarterback. He makes very good decisions, is smart and safe with the football, and has that element of the rushing attack, right? You can draw QB runs, you can draw QB counters, you can do, he can scramble out of the pocket, extend plays, and make plays with his legs when he needs to. And as Brad Holmes said, he is kind of a true dual threat quarterback that can do anything you need him to do at any level of the field. Now, taking a look at Hendon Hooker, his pros are pretty much everything you could ask for out of a quarterback, right? He has really good accuracy. He has really good decision-making. He is a phenomenal leader based on what Brad Holmes has told us, as well as his mobility and his quick release. He is accurate at all 3 levels of the field, short, intermediate, and deep. He does miss a few deep balls here and there, but the Tennessee offense threw a ton of them every game. I mean, Hendon Hooker was probably throwing 7 to 10 deep balls a game. He averaged the highest average depth of target in the whole entire NCAA. So when you're throwing probably 100 deep balls a season, you're going to miss 5 or 6, right? It happens. He's going to miss a few a year. But for the most part, I'd say 90% of the time, he is a fairly accurate quarterback with the deep ball and throws a really good intermediate and short passing game. His decision-making is elite. A 27-2 touchdown to interception ratio is top tier in the NCAA, and he just doesn't turn the football over and very rarely puts the ball in harm's way, very rarely is going to turn the football over, which is a trait that we like as the quarterback at the Detroit Lions. Now, the leadership one is kind of something that Brad Holmes talked about as far as being at the Tennessee games, kind of seeing him on the sidelines, seeing him in pre-draft or pre-game warmups, seeing him during things you wouldn't see on tapes. There are things you wouldn't see on the TV screen, and that is, his leadership ability, his off the field stuff, his personality on the sideline, his personality during warmups, things like that. And those were all things that Brad Holmes said impressed them about Hendon Hooker and really sold them from being a good quarterback prospect to their quarterback prospect. Now, the mobility, as I said, over 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, a very mobile quarterback. In his quick release, he gets the ball out very, very quick, and it is a very impressive thing to watch. However, the cons are his injury and age. right? He is 25 years old, which I think is going to put the Lions in a little bit of an awkward situation a few years down the line. And he's 25 years old, right? If he was 20 years old coming off of an ACL tear, I think he'd have a lot easier time recovering than him being 25. And although people are going to say, yeah, you can still have a long 10-year NFL career, that is true. I'm not necessarily worried about his longevity as far as a football player. I'm worried about how long it's going to take him to recover from the ACL tear, being 25 years old and kind of being on the older side of prospect, not having the timeline and the development curve that a lot of the other rookies are going to have. Now, we don't have it on here, but I think Hendon Hooker adjusting to NFL offenses is going to be something that is going to be troublesome. At Tennessee, they ran a very unique offense that worked with spacing and worked with things that just aren't open very often in the NFL, as well as Hendon Hooker never making it to a third read, right? There, every single read that he made, he did get to 2 and even sometimes 3, but they were all on the same side of the field. So it was like he'd be looking to his left, it's go, it's out, and then if those 2 aren't there, then it's the check down to the running back to the same side. He never would work back to the right side of the field. And the same thing for the right side of the field, right? If it started on the right, it's 1 read, it's 2 reads right there. If it's not there, you check it down or you take off. He doesn't get to the 3rd or 4th reads on the backside of plays because he never was taught to do it and was never asked to do so at Tennessee. And I think that is the biggest concern with Hendon Hooker is he going to have the ability to get to that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th read? Is he going to have the ability to get to the backside of plays? Is he going to have the ability to improvise on plays when things go off schedule and he isn't able to just check the football down to a wide open running back or throw it to a wide open Jalen Hyatt down the field? And those are things that are truly concerning with Hendon Hooker. Now, of course, he didn't really have an RAS score as he wasn't able to test athletically through the pre-draft process, but I can tell you firsthand, he's a very good athlete. He's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not a Kyler Murray, but he's right up there with probably like Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. And I'd say even maybe Trevor Lawrence as far as athletic, mobile quarterbacks. He can extend plays. He can get it out. He can make a lot of things happen with his legs. Now, the overall grade I have for Hendon Hooker as a prospect is a low B, is a B. A solid B, not a B plus, not a B minus, because I think he doesn't have as high of a ceiling as guys like Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, or Bryce Young. I don't think he necessarily even has the ceiling of guys like DTR, who are a little bit more mobile, have a little bit better physical gifts. But I think Hendon Hooker is a top tier elite quarterback 2. I think day 1, he's probably a top 10 quarterback 2 in the NFL with the potential to develop into a quarterback 1. Now, I don't want the B grade to signify that I think Hendon Hooker is a bad player necessarily. I don't want it to come across and say, oh, I don't think Hendon Hooker can succeed in the NFL, because I think that he can. I think a 3rd round grade was incredibly appropriate. Again, he was my 60th overall prospect in the class, and the Lions got him with the 68 overall pick. It was a very appropriate value. It was a very good value for a quarterback. And I think anytime you're betting that a quarterback can turn into your franchise QB, can turn into a long-term option, it has the potential to be the upside of an A-plus pick. But with Hendon Hooker's injury, with his age, and kind of with some of the mental things that we talked about, I really do have some worries and red flags about the potential longevity of Hendon Hooker as QB1 for the Detroit Lions. On top of that, one of the biggest reasons I give it a B and not a B plus or somewhere in the A range is by the time Hendon Hooker's rookie contract is up, we're going to be in the same situation that we are right now. Hendon Hooker is going to be 29 going into his 2nd contract, and you are going to have to make the decision of whether you're going to pay him, whether he's good enough to make $50 million a season, or whether you're going to move on and draft the next quarterback in 4 years. Now, that is a stone that the Lions have kicked down the road for at least 4 seasons. I think Hendon Hooker as a starting quarterback at the very least wouldn't be a bad option, but I don't think it's the long-term success that you want, right? CJ Stroud and Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson and even Will Levis, not to a lesser extent, but those top 3 guys are all going to get to their 2nd contracts by time they're 26, by time they're 27, and they're going to have 3 more years before they even reach the 30s. Hendon Hooker is going to be 29 or 30 by the time he ends up getting his 2nd contract, which at that point, how many years until the physical fall off starts to come and he starts to physically regress like Stafford and Matt Ryan and Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger? I think that's a really real concern that the Lions have to consider down the road. Now, as far as a prospect, as far as a rookie, as far as a player, I think he's a good player. I think it was an appropriate value pick. And I think it really solidifies the Lions quarterback room for at least the next 3 to 4 seasons. But I don't think this was a necessarily hit out of the park type of home run as much as it was a solid depth piece and a potential future starting quarterback. So with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about Hendon Hooker. How do you grade the player? How do you grade the pick? Do you want to see Hendon Hooker become the starting quarterback in Detroit, or do you think he's going to be primarily a backup for his career? I'd be very curious what you guys have to say, but with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.